Hi, today I'm going to tell you about the 2016 adventure film called The Big and Kind Giant. 10-year-old girl Sophia, who lives in a London orphanage, often wakes up at the witching hour, the time between 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, which is associated with various supernatural phenomena. One day, the orphan can't sleep again, so she decides to do a routine. The girl lays out the letters, chases away 4 drunken men who are making noise on the street, then decides to return to the bedroom to immerse herself in reading a book, when suddenly Sophia's red cat hears the noise and jumps out onto the balcony. The baby breaks the rules, leaves the bed, and cautiously looks out into the street and sees a huge hand lifting a dumpster. The giant notices the orphan and, despite the fact that Sophia tries to hide from him under the blanket, the giant grabs the girl with him, quietly and secretly moving through the streets until finally he comes to the cave. The gloomy dwelling of the giant, as well as the sight of sharp knives sharpened by a stranger, frightened the child very much. Sophia tries to sneak to the window to escape, but in the process drops several objects and attracts the attention of the kidnapper. The old man blocks the way of the fugitive, after which he explains that the girl's presence in the land of giants is due to the giant's unwillingness to reveal his own existence to people. Despite the fact that Sophia swears not to tell the interlocutor about her discovery, he remains adamant. He warns that if the baby dares to go out alone, she can be eaten by 9 much larger and evil giants. As soon as Sophia finds out that the kidnapper intends to keep her in the house until the end of the heroine's days, she confidently declares to the old man that she will try to escape in any case, and also, the little girl loses her temper, unable to tolerate the incorrect pronunciation of the words spoken by the interlocutor, and directly informs him about it, after which immediately apologizes for his rudeness towards the old man. Then the two decide to conclude a truce. Sophia admits that she suffers from insomnia when she notices dreams in a jar on the giant's table, and the giant offers to read the girl a book at night. The monotonous insinuating voice has a hypnotic effect on the child. As soon as he sees that the orphan has fallen asleep, the giant takes off and goes to the secret workshop behind the waterfall, where the collected dreams are stored. He creates a nightmare for Sophia, in which another giant catches the girl during the escape of G and eats her alive. Of course, when she wakes up, she immediately demands an explanation and the giant tells her what danger the girl is really in. Sophia learns that her companion is very different from his relatives, in addition to the fact that his height is 8 meters, and the diet consists exclusively of plant foods. Sophia learns that the good-natured giant likes to drink soda called bulkwasson. The conversation of these two is interrupted by the infantile leader of the giants, Ludeglot. He invades the house of a kind-hearted giant with a request to cure a wounded finger. Soon the uninvited guest discovers a human smell and starts looking for Sophie, who meanwhile hid in a cucumber. Ludeglot cannot find the child, so he takes a bottle of sparkling water and leaves the cave, not forgetting to offend the kind giant. The giant leads Sophie to the storehouse of dreams, where he helps the girl to wash, gives new clothes and equips the dwelling. As soon as the orphan finds out that the giant is going to go to work to catch dreams, she declares her intention to join the old man, but the giant makes it clear that he is not going to put the girl's life in danger. Then Sophie decides to choose a different strategy. She says that it will be safer for her if the old man takes her with him. Then the ogre will not feel the human smell. The giant reluctantly agrees, and after leaving the cave, he begins to regret his decision, because he realizes that they need to overcome a difficult path to get to the hill where the dreams are located. The companions try to slip past the sleeping giants, but fail. Ludeglot wakes up and catches the old man, while Sophie hides in the cabin of a broken car. The giants begin to mock their kinsman, laugh at him, throwing him off the mountain. Everything ends when clouds gather in the sky and a downpour falls on the giants who hate water. The monsters quickly leave the field, hiding in a cave, and the kind giant and his little Sophie leave. Ludeglot discovers Sophie's lost blanket. As soon as the evil giants are left behind, the orphan tells his companion that he should not allow himself to be offended. The old man replies that he cannot equally resist other giants, so he fights them as best he can, namely catching dreams. Finally, the two of them reach the top of the hill, finding themselves in the land of dreams. The old man talks about the miracles that manifest themselves on such clear nights as this. He also admits that he hears everything that the inhabitants of the country are secretly talking about under the starry sky. Before jumping into the Emerald Lake, the giant confesses that someone once called him a big, kind giant. Sophie follows her overgrown friend, finding herself on the other side of the water surface. Suddenly, a good-natured old man notices a rare dream, a light golden one, which he comically tries to catch with a net, but fails. Then the bright ball flies straight to the frozen girl, and the giant manages to hold the dream in his hands and imprison her in a vessel. Sophie asks the giant what the trapped dream is talking about, and the old man replies that the orphan herself participates in this vision. Then the girl frolics around, trying to catch other glowing balls, but they do not want to fall into the hands of the child. In the end, she manages to catch only a terrible nightmare, which the giant immediately picks up and locks in a jar, disappearing into an impenetrable fog. Sophie is seriously scared when she can't find the giant, but he is already waiting for the baby in the ordinary world. The orphan says that she will name the big and kind giant BFG, and he happily agrees. Then the two return to the city to give the captured dreams to people. The giant tells about his origin. It turns out that he has no parents, and the old man's age is almost the same as Earth's. With the help of his magic pipe, the giant embodies a dream in the dream of a local boy and allows the latter to take part in a telephone conversation with the President of the United States. On the way home, the sensitive hearing of the BFG catches the sadness in someone's heart, and a moment later he sees his relatives, who probably visited the city for food in the form of defenseless orphans. Sophie reports that she lost her blanket in the land of giants, not noticing the anxiety in the eyes of the kind giant. Later, the girl wakes up on the steps of the shelter, where she was brought by a frightened BFG. The orphan asks the giant to take her with him, but he gently refuses, telling about the fate of his past orphan, as brave as Sophie, whom the kind man could not protect from his cruel relatives. The girl bravely declares that she is not afraid of monsters and is ready to confront them together with her new friend, but the BFG, not daring to put the child in danger, leaves. Sophie returns to the shared bedroom with the red cat, but after the adventures experienced, sleep never comes to the baby. Not believing in the final departure of the good-natured giant, the girl decides on a desperate act. She jumps out of the window in the hope that the BFG will have time to catch her. The giant does not let the baby down. Realizing that the baby does not intend to give up her words, the giant returns home with her. The BFG understands perfectly well that Ludiglot and his henchmen have already learned about the existence of Sophie because of the blanket. They try to come up with some kind of plan, but they don't have time to do anything, because the leader and his gang appear right in the Vault of Dreams. Ludiglot orders the giants to find the child, and the BFG watches in horror as the results of his labors collapse right before his eyes. He tries to appeal to the conscience of the leader, saying that in the past giants have never offended people, but the ogre ignores the old man. Sophie has to leave the shelter to avoid exposure, and as a result, she finds the room of a former friend of the BFG, where she notices a portrait of the former Queen Victoria. Seeing that Ludiglot is one step away from finding the girl, the giant good-natured decides to fight back against the attackers. With the help of water and fire, he drives away the violators and says that they are a disgrace to the giants. Meanwhile, Sophie has an idea. She convinces a big and kind giant to go with her to London to the now reigning Queen Elizabeth II to solve the problem forever. The BFG creates a terrible nightmare for the Queen about giants eating small children from orphanages, and the BFG also adds himself and Sophie to the dreams of the military. In the middle of the night, the companions infiltrate Buckingham Palace, where they send the created nightmare to the Queen. Waking up, the frightened Queen tells her assistant Mary about what she saw. She comforts the woman and shows her an article in the newspaper about the missing children. After the Queen asks Mary to open the curtains, they find Sophie on the windowsill, who talks about the BFG and her plan to defeat the evil giants. As soon as the giant appears in the royal garden, he is surrounded by palace guards. Well, Elizabeth stops her subjects, allowing the 8-meter-old man to politely introduce himself to the Queen. The Queen calls the heads of other states, telling about giants eating children. Sophie is put in order, after which the queen invites her guests to have dinner with her. BFG remains impressed by all kinds of dishes, admitting that cucumbers are not so delicious. When the army generals arrive at the palace, Elizabeth announces a military operation against the land of giants. The BFG promises to take the soldiers to their homeland. 6 hours later, the British Army is at the designated location. The BFG shares his plan with Sophie. He intends to send the nightmare caught by the orphan last night to the bloodthirsty relatives. Before the execution of the plan, the BFG and Sophie talk on the hill. The giant promises never to forget the girl in the future, to answer any of her requests. After that, Sophie goes down with a jar of nightmare to the sleeping monsters. She is noticed by the awakened Ludeglot, but the baby manages to break the jar. Nightmares take possession of all giants, except Ludeglot, who does not allow a bad dream to penetrate into consciousness. He intends to grab Sophie, when suddenly the BFG attacks him, and the British army begins to attack evil monsters. The soldiers tie up the giants and take them to a desert island, where only cucumbers remain as food. After the incident, Sophie moves to live in Buckingham Palace with the Queen. She tells her about a dream, about a big and kind giant who now lives quietly in the land of giants. When Sophie gets sad, she opens the window and greets the giant with the words, "Good morning, BFG," and the giant sitting at home hears the girl's phrase and responds to it with a smile. Friends, if you like my retelling, support the channel with a like and a subscription. Do not forget to leave comments, it helps a lot in promoting the video. Bye everyone.